Ladies and gentlemen, let's talk about something simple, but so often ignored: knowing when to walk away when we're not appreciated. It's a notion that's easy to grasp but hard to live out because it's tied to our sense of worth, our values, and our deepest connections with others. We all know that feeling when we're giving everything we can, showing up wholeheartedly only to feel invisible, dismissed, or taken for granted. Maybe it's in a job where you pour your talents and ideas into every project, only to watch them overlooked or claimed by someone else. Or maybe it's in a friendship or a relationship where you constantly make space for someone else's needs, but yours seem to vanish in the process. These experiences take a toll, leaving us questioning our own value and, even worse, tempting us to shrink ourselves to fit into spaces that don't respect our worth. But here's the hard truth: staying in places that don't honor or appreciate us doesn't just hurt, it reinforces the belief that our value is negotiable. And when we accept less, we don't just lose a part of ourselves, we risk teaching others to see us as less too. There's a difference between selflessness and self-sacrifice. Selflessness builds connection, but self-sacrifice erodes it. And what often begins as a silent hope for recognition can turn into resentment and finally a sense of emptiness. Walking away isn't easy, but it's an act of courage. It's saying, I know my worth, even if you don't see it. And I choose not to let my value be determined by someone else's blindness. It's a move that says to the world and to ourselves that our worth is non-negotiable. Stepping away isn't always about grand gestures. Sometimes it's in the small choices: setting boundaries, speaking up, creating space between ourselves and those who don't recognize our worth. And sometimes it's a leap, a shift to a new job, a healthier relationship, or a different environment where we can show up authentically without feeling diminished. Remember, when we let go of what's holding us back, we open ourselves up to the possibility of finding places and people who will celebrate who we are. We don't need to shrink ourselves to feel worthy. True appreciation honors who we are, not just what we bring to the table. So let's embrace the courage to walk away when we're not appreciated, and to step fully into spaces that reflect our true worth. Because when we honor our value, we give others permission to do the same, creating connections that are genuine, respectful, and grounded in mutual appreciation. And that, at the end of the day, is where we find real belonging. Recognizing your value is a foundational practice for living a life rooted in authenticity and self-respect. Yet, in a world where value is often assigned based on external achievements, social status, or other people's approval, it can be challenging to truly grasp our intrinsic worth. Too often, we fall into the habit of looking outward for affirmation, waiting for others to validate us, or measuring our value by what we achieve rather than who we are. But real self-worth is an internal experience. It begins with understanding that your value is inherent and isn't defined by how others treat or perceive you. First, understanding your intrinsic value means acknowledging that you matter simply because you exist. This concept might sound simple, yet it runs counter to so much of what we've been conditioned to believe. From a young age, we're taught that value is something to be earned, something that comes only from external validation, such as grades in school, recognition at work, or acceptance within social circles. We grow up with the idea that we need to do something extraordinary to be worthy of love, belonging, or respect. However, this mindset sets us on a never-ending quest for approval, and it leaves us vulnerable to feeling worthless whenever we don't meet those external standards. When we focus too much on external validation, we risk becoming dependent on it, basing our worth on others' opinions, reactions, and judgments. But people's perceptions of us are inherently limited. They can only see a fragment of who we are, filtered through their own biases, experiences, and expectations. This means that if we allow others' assessments to define us, we risk living in a way that's disconnected from our true selves, constantly shifting to fit into other people's views of who we should be. This can lead to a cycle of self-doubt and insecurity, where our sense of worth rises and falls depending on how others respond to us. To break free from this, we must turn inward and cultivate a sense of self-worth that isn't tied to external factors. This involves examining our own beliefs about value and questioning any narratives that tell us our worth is conditional. Ask yourself, what beliefs have I internalized about my value? Do I truly believe that I matter, even if no one else is watching or validating me? Becoming aware of these beliefs allows us to start shifting from a mindset that seeks approval from others to one that recognizes and honors our own inherent value. One powerful way to connect with this sense of self-worth is through self-compassion. Self-compassion is about treating yourself with the same kindness and understanding that you would offer to a friend. It's about acknowledging that you are worthy of love, respect, and care, even when you're not perfect or meeting everyone else's expectations. Practicing self-compassion allows you to see yourself as a complete, flawed, and worthy person, someone who has value not because of what you do or what others think, but simply because you are. Another critical aspect of recognizing your value involves honoring your unique qualities, strengths, and experiences. Each of us has a unique blend of talents, perspectives, and values that cannot be replicated. Instead of comparing yourself to others or striving to meet someone else's standards, focus on embracing what makes you you. Reflect on your core values and the qualities that make you proud of who you are. Are you empathetic? Resilient? Creative? Each of these characteristics contributes to your worth in ways that no one else can replicate. Recognizing and celebrating these qualities helps to affirm your intrinsic value and encourages you to live authentically. It's also essential to understand that you don't need to be constantly productive or successful to be valuable. In a society that often equates busyness with importance, we're made to feel that our worth is tied to our achievements and productivity. But our value isn't defined by how much we produce or how successful we are. Embracing your worth means acknowledging that you don't need to prove yourself by constantly doing or achieving. You have worth even in moments of rest, even when you make mistakes, and even when you're simply being. Another part of embracing your value is setting boundaries that protect your well-being and prevent others from diminishing your worth. When you recognize your intrinsic value, you understand that it's okay to say no, to walk away from situations or people that don't honor who you are, and to demand respect for yourself. Boundaries aren't about shutting people out, they're about creating space for healthy relationships where you're valued and respected. When we set boundaries, we're saying, I am worthy of respect, and I won't accept being treated otherwise. Learning to recognize and embrace your value is an ongoing journey. There will be days when you feel deeply connected to your worth, and other days when doubt creeps in. But even on those difficult days, remember that your value isn't up for negotiation. It's a constant, something that can't be taken away, no matter what happens externally. As you continue this practice, you'll find that self-worth becomes less about seeking approval and more about honoring who you are. Embracing this internal source of worth empowers you to live authentically, form healthier relationships, and pursue a life that genuinely fulfills you. Identifying when you're not valued requires a combination of self-awareness, emotional honesty, and the courage to face uncomfortable truths. While many of us may sense when we're being overlooked or taken for granted, it's easy to brush these feelings aside, excusing the behavior or doubting our own perceptions. But recognizing when you're not valued is essential to nurturing a healthy sense of self-respect and creating fulfilling relationships. A clear sign that you may not be valued is the consistent lack of acknowledgement for your efforts. When you're contributing your time, skills, or care to a situation, be it in a workplace, friendship, or family dynamic, and you notice that your contributions are routinely dismissed, minimized, or even taken credit for by others, it's worth taking a closer look. People who value you will show appreciation and recognition, not only when it's convenient, but in a way that feels authentic and sincere. While everyone has moments of distraction or preoccupation, a recurring pattern of disregard is a sign that your contributions may not be fully respected or recognized. Another telltale indicator is when others don't respect your boundaries. Boundaries are expressions of self-worth. They reflect what you need to feel safe, respected, and valued. If you find that others frequently push against, ignore, or trivialize your boundaries, this behavior is a red flag. People who truly value you will recognize and honor the limits you set, even if they don't fully understand them. When someone consistently fails to respect your boundaries, it's often an indication that they view their own needs and desires as more important than yours. This imbalance can lead to feelings of being used or undervalued, as it suggests a lack of regard for your well-being. Notice, too, how people respond to you when you express your thoughts, feelings, and ideas. Do they listen attentively, showing genuine interest and engagement, or do they frequently interrupt, talk over you, or dismiss what you're saying? Being valued means being heard and having your voice matter in conversations and decisions. If you find yourself in environments where others routinely disregard your input, it's a sign that they may not see you as a full participant in the interaction. This lack of respect can erode your self-esteem over time, leading you to question your own perspective and worth. Another way to recognize when you're not valued is by observing patterns of one-sided effort. In healthy, reciprocal relationships, whether professional or personal, both parties invest time, energy, and care. However, if you consistently find yourself giving more than you receive, making sacrifices that aren't acknowledged, or doing emotional labor to keep the relationship intact, it's worth examining whether you're truly valued. When people value you, they make an effort to contribute equally, recognizing that a relationship requires a mutual exchange. This doesn't mean that every interaction is perfectly balanced, but in a valued relationship, both sides feel a sense of give and take. Pay attention to how you feel in the presence of those around you. Often, our emotions can be powerful indicators of whether we're being valued. If you frequently feel drained, unappreciated, or anxious after interacting with certain individuals, your body and mind might be signaling that these relationships lack the respect and appreciation you deserve. Valued relationships tend to leave us feeling seen, heard, and fulfilled rather than depleted. While it's normal to experience occasional challenges, a persistent feeling of being undervalued can indicate a deeper issue in the relationship dynamics. Consider how transparent and honest the people around you are with their intentions and expectations. When you're valued, others are clear and upfront about what they want from you, and they don't rely on manipulation, guilt, or passive-aggressive tactics to get their way. If you're frequently left guessing, feeling uncertain about where you stand, or feeling like there's an unspoken expectation hanging over you, it can indicate that your value to the other person may be conditional or transactional. Transparency in relationships is a sign of respect, and those who value you will communicate openly rather than leaving you to guess or second-guess their intentions. A crucial part of recognizing when you're not valued is also understanding the impact of emotional consistency in your interactions. When someone values you, they are generally consistent in how they treat you, regardless of the circumstances or their own mood. However, if someone's behavior toward you fluctuates drastically based on external factors or their own emotional state, it can create a sense of instability and insecurity. You might feel valued one day and disregarded the next, which can leave you doubting your worth and feeling on edge. Those who value you show up with a level of predictability, honoring your presence consistently rather than treating you based on convenience or circumstance. In many cases, people may fail to value you not because they consciously intend harm, but because they are preoccupied with their own needs, ambitions, or insecurities. While this lack of appreciation may not stem from malice, it's still damaging to your self-worth and overall well-being. Understanding this distinction can help you make clear, compassionate decisions about how to engage with others. By recognizing when you're not valued, you empower yourself to make choices that reflect your self-worth, whether that means setting boundaries, addressing the issue directly, or stepping away from relationships that don't honor who you are. Identifying when you're not valued takes courage, self-reflection, and a commitment to honesty. It requires you to observe patterns and take note of how you're treated, rather than dismissing or rationalizing away behavior that doesn't feel respectful. It's not always an easy task, but recognizing these signs allows you to honor your own value and seek out spaces where you're genuinely appreciated. When you make choices aligned with your self-worth, you're not only standing up for yourself, but also inviting others to treat you with the respect you deserve. Differentiating between selflessness and self-sacrifice is a subtle but important skill, as it requires understanding how to give of yourself in a way that's both generous and respectful of your own needs. Selflessness is a beautiful quality. It's the act of extending kindness, empathy, and compassion to others without expecting anything in return. It's the ability to give freely, motivated by love or a desire to help, and it's essential for building strong, healthy connections. However, when selflessness crosses the line into self-sacrifice, it can lead to burnout, resentment, and a feeling of being taken for granted. Self-sacrifice, unlike selflessness, involves consistently putting others' needs above your own to the point that your well-being is compromised. It's a pattern that often diminishes your sense of self-worth, as it implies that others' needs are more important than your own. Selflessness in relationships and interactions is about balance. It's knowing when to give and also when to step back and recharge. Healthy selflessness is rooted in an understanding that generosity and care are valuable, but so is your own energy and well-being. It's being able to offer support, time, and compassion while still keeping space for yourself to grow, rest, and nurture your own needs. When we operate with selflessness, we find satisfaction in the act of giving, but we don't expect others to fulfill us or validate our worth. We give from a place of security and fullness, which makes it easier to create boundaries and communicate openly when our resources, be they emotional, mental, or physical, are running low. On the other hand, self-sacrifice is often driven by a deeper, sometimes unconscious need for validation or acceptance. When we continually put others' needs before our own to a point that it causes us harm or stress, it's often because we've internalized the belief that we need to earn love or prove our worth through our actions. This need to earn our place in relationships or at work can push us into patterns of self-neglect, where we start believing that our needs are secondary or even irrelevant. In extreme cases, self-sacrifice can become a cycle of martyrdom, where we feel we're obligated to suffer for others' benefit, ultimately eroding our sense of self-respect and self-worth. To differentiate between selflessness and self-sacrifice, it's helpful to examine your motivation for giving. Ask yourself, are you giving because you genuinely want to, or because you feel you have to in order to feel valued or needed? Selflessness comes from a place of choice, where you're free to say yes or no without guilt. If your giving is motivated by fear of disappointing others, guilt, or a sense of obligation, it may be a sign that you're edging into self-sacrifice. In this case, you might find yourself saying yes to things you don't really want to do, or feeling resentful when others don't reciprocate the same level of effort or consideration. One of the challenges with self-sacrifice is that it can create an imbalance in relationships. When you give so much of yourself without expecting or allowing any return, you're essentially setting a precedent where others become accustomed to you always being there, regardless of your own needs. Over time, this can lead to feeling undervalued and unappreciated, as people may come to take your presence, effort, and support for granted. In contrast, selflessness in healthy relationships fosters mutual respect, where each person can give and receive without feeling depleted or resentful. It's also essential to listen to your body and emotions as cues for when selflessness is tipping into self-sacrifice. Physical signs of burnout, fatigue, tension, or emotional numbness are often signals that you're overextending yourself. Emotional indicators like resentment, frustration, or feeling invisible can be powerful signals that you're giving too much at the expense of your own needs. Selflessness that becomes painful or leaves you feeling disregarded is a clear sign that self-sacrifice is at play. When this happens, taking a step back to assess your boundaries and motivations can help you realign your actions with what's truly nourishing for both you and those around you. Setting boundaries is a practical way to maintain healthy selflessness without slipping into self-sacrifice. Boundaries allow you to give from a place of abundance rather than depletion. They remind both you and others that you too have limits and needs. For instance, if you're always the one friends or family turn to in times of crisis, setting a boundary around your availability can help you maintain your own energy while still being supportive. Boundaries aren't walls, they're guidelines that protect your well-being so that you can show up as your best self when you do choose to give. Learning to receive is an essential skill for balancing selflessness and self-sacrifice. When we're overly focused on giving, we can forget that allowing others to help and support us is also an act of generosity both to ourselves and to those who care about us. Accepting help, kindness, or even just appreciation from others reinforces the idea that we're deserving of care too. It's a reminder that relationships thrive on reciprocity, where both people feel valued and appreciated. Learning to receive graciously, without guilt, helps to strengthen connections while preserving your own energy and self-worth. Differentiating between selflessness and self-sacrifice is about maintaining a healthy sense of self while still honoring your compassion for others. True selflessness doesn't require that you diminish yourself instead. It invites you to be fully present in a way that respects both your needs and those of others. By practicing self-awareness, setting boundaries, and being open to receiving, you create a balance that allows you to give freely and meaningfully without losing yourself in the process. Setting boundaries to protect your worth is a crucial act of self-respect and self-preservation, and it can greatly enhance your sense of well-being and fulfillment. Boundaries help create a sense of balance, giving you the space to honor your own needs, values, and priorities while maintaining healthy, meaningful relationships with others. When you set boundaries, you're effectively telling yourself and others that you recognize your worth and won't allow it to be compromised by unrealistic expectations, disrespect, or emotional drain. Boundaries serve as a form of self-care, empowering you to be in relationships and situations that are supportive and aligned with your true self. Boundaries often begin with understanding your own needs and values. To set effective boundaries, it's important to reflect on what genuinely matters to you and what you're unwilling to compromise. Are there specific behaviors that make you feel disrespected or undervalued? Are there certain expectations that make you feel overburdened or taken for granted? Taking the time to identify these things helps you establish what's acceptable in your interactions with others. When you're clear on your values and needs, boundaries become easier to define and communicate, and you'll be less likely to allow others to encroach on the areas that are essential to your well-being. Learning to recognize when you need boundaries can be guided by your emotional and physical responses. Often, your body and emotions provide signals that you may be in situations where your boundaries are either weak or non-existent. Feelings of resentment, frustration, or exhaustion often indicate that something is out of alignment. For example, if you feel chronically drained after certain interactions, it may be a sign that the relationship lacks balance and needs clearer boundaries. Similarly, if you find yourself feeling consistently anxious or overwhelmed in specific situations, these emotions might be pointing to areas where your boundaries need to be reinforced. Listening to these signals can help you pinpoint where you need to protect your energy and worth. Communicating boundaries is a vital part of the process, as it allows others to understand your expectations and respect your limits. Setting boundaries is not about controlling others, but rather about clearly expressing what you need in order to feel respected and valued. When you communicate boundaries, it's helpful to be direct yet compassionate. Statements like "I need time to recharge before I can engage fully," or "I'm not comfortable discussing that topic" set clear expectations without assigning blame or making others feel judged. Assertive, respectful communication reinforces your boundaries while allowing others the opportunity to understand and respect your needs. While setting boundaries may initially feel uncomfortable, it's important to remember that they are an essential part of any healthy relationship. Many people worry that by setting boundaries, they might come across as selfish or uncaring. However, boundaries are a sign of self-respect, not selfishness. They allow you to preserve your energy and ensure that you're giving from a place of fullness, not obligation or resentment. In fact, boundaries often make relationships stronger because they foster open communication and respect, allowing each person to feel valued and understood. When both parties understand each other's boundaries, interactions are more likely to be supportive and fulfilling. Setting boundaries also empowers you to avoid people and situations that don't honor your worth. In relationships where you feel undervalued, boundaries can help create distance, either physically or emotionally, from individuals who do not respect your time, energy, or contributions. It's okay to limit your interactions with people who drain you or consistently make you feel less than. Limiting contact or setting specific guidelines around your interactions isn't rude or unfriendly. It's a way to protect your well-being and preserve your self-worth. Practicing boundaries over time builds confidence in your ability to assert your needs and protect your self-respect. Each time you reinforce a boundary, you're sending a message to yourself that your needs are valid and worth protecting. This consistency not only strengthens your resolve, but also helps others learn how to treat you. When people see that you stand by your boundaries, they are more likely to respect them and honor the space you've created. Over time, this practice becomes a positive cycle. The more you honor your boundaries, the more others will understand and respect them, reinforcing the idea that your worth is not up for negotiation. Another important aspect of setting boundaries is learning to say no without guilt. For many, saying no can feel uncomfortable because it goes against the desire to be liked or to avoid conflict. However, understanding that no is a complete sentence is key to maintaining your boundaries. Saying no isn't about rejecting people or obligations, it's about honoring your limits. When you say no, you're choosing to protect your energy and make room for things that genuinely matter to you. Over time, saying no becomes less about letting others down and more about lifting yourself up. Respecting others' boundaries is also essential in this process, as it allows you to model the kind of relationship you want to have. When you respect the boundaries that others set, you demonstrate that you value their needs just as you expect them to value yours. This mutual respect fosters a healthier dynamic, where both individuals feel empowered to express and protect their limits. Understanding boundaries as a two-way street makes it easier for you to set your own without feeling guilty or fearing rejection. Boundaries are an essential practice for protecting your self-worth. They enable you to be kind, empathetic, and giving without compromising your own needs and well-being. They allow you to navigate relationships in a way that honors both you and those around you. Setting boundaries is a skill, and like any skill, it takes practice and patience. Over time, as you become more comfortable with setting and maintaining boundaries, you'll find that they empower you to live with greater authenticity, freedom, and respect for yourself. Learning to walk away when your value isn't recognized is one of the most empowering actions you can take for yourself. It's a decision that often requires courage, self-awareness, and a deep commitment to honoring your worth, even when others may not. Walking away doesn't mean you don't care, nor does it imply a lack of effort or understanding. Instead, it's an acknowledgement that you deserve to be valued, respected, and appreciated in your relationships, work, and life pursuits. By walking away, you're not abandoning the situation out of anger or frustration, but rather choosing to create space for relationships and opportunities that recognize and respect who you are. One of the first steps to embracing the decision to walk away is recognizing that you're not responsible for others' inability to see your worth. When someone consistently undervalues you, it's often a reflection of their own limitations, biases, or insecurities, not a reflection of your intrinsic value. Many of us fall into the trap of believing that if we just try a little harder, do more, or prove ourselves in some way, the other person will finally see our worth. But this way of thinking can lead to a cycle of self-doubt and even self-blame, where we question whether we're truly worthy of respect and appreciation. Walking away allows you to break free from this cycle and reclaim your sense of self-worth by acknowledging that you are not obligated to convince anyone of your value. Walking away is often about creating boundaries and respecting your own emotional energy. When you're in an environment where you're consistently undervalued, it can take an emotional toll, leaving you drained, frustrated, and even resentful. This negative impact on your emotional well-being isn't something to ignore or minimize. By choosing to walk away, you're protecting your energy and well-being, prioritizing the things that contribute positively to your life rather than those that drain you. It's an act of self-care, a way to ensure that you're investing your energy where it can be returned in the form of mutual respect, appreciation, and support. Walking away also provides an opportunity for growth, both for you and the people involved. When you remove yourself from situations that don't honor your value, it can send a powerful message to others about the importance of respect and appreciation. Sometimes, people don't realize the impact of their actions until the person they've taken for granted decides to leave. Your departure can be a catalyst for others to reassess their behavior and consider the ways they may have overlooked or undervalued your contributions. Even if they don't change, walking away allows you to grow as you learn to honor your worth and seek relationships and opportunities that align with it. Another important aspect of walking away is recognizing that it creates space for new possibilities and healthier connections. Often, when we stay in environments or relationships where we're not valued, we miss out on other opportunities that could better serve us. It's easy to cling to familiar situations even when they aren't fulfilling, simply because we fear the unknown or are reluctant to let go. But by walking away, you're allowing yourself to move towards situations and people who recognize and celebrate your value. Letting go of what doesn't serve you opens the door for new connections, experiences, and growth opportunities that are in alignment with your true worth. Walking away is also about reinforcing your boundaries and standards. Every time you choose to stay in a situation where you're not valued, you're effectively lowering your standards for how you expect to be treated. Over time, this can lead to an erosion of your self-respect as you begin to accept behavior that doesn't honor your worth. By walking away, you're establishing a standard for yourself and others, making it clear that you won't settle for less than the respect and appreciation you deserve. This can be a powerful way to reinforce your own self-worth and set the tone for future interactions and relationships. Walking away teaches resilience and self-trust. It's not easy to leave behind a relationship, job, or situation, especially when you've invested time, effort, and emotional energy into it. However, each time you choose to walk away from something that doesn't value you, you're building trust in yourself and your ability to make choices that honor your worth. This trust is a key part of resilience, as it helps you become more confident in setting boundaries and making difficult decisions that serve your well-being. By walking away, you're reinforcing the idea that you are capable of taking care of yourself and prioritizing your happiness and self-respect, even in challenging situations. It's important to remember that walking away isn't about rejecting others, it's about choosing yourself. Often we stay in undervalued situations out of loyalty, fear of conflict, or a desire to avoid hurting others. But in doing so, we risk hurting ourselves and compromising our self-worth. By walking away, you're choosing to prioritize your needs, well-being, and happiness, which isn't selfish, it's self-respect. It's a powerful statement that you deserve to be in spaces and relationships where you're genuinely appreciated. And as you embrace this choice, you'll find that it empowers you to live more authentically, with a greater sense of fulfillment and alignment with your true self. Embracing the strength to move forward without closure can be one of the most challenging yet liberating decisions you make. Closure, while ideal, isn't always possible in life, and the need for it often stems from our desire to make sense of painful or confusing experiences. We crave clarity, an explanation, or some form of acknowledgement that validates our feelings and allows us to let go. But when that closure is not forthcoming, when the other person is unwilling or unable to offer explanations, apologies, or understanding, learning to let go on our own terms becomes essential to finding peace and reclaiming our power. Moving forward without closure requires a shift in focus, where you recognize that peace can be something you cultivate within yourself, even when the situation feels unresolved. Rather than fixating on unanswered questions or trying to extract validation from the past, you begin to explore what it means to find inner resolution. This process often involves self-reflection, self-compassion, and a willingness to confront the emotions that arise when you feel incomplete. It means honoring your own feelings, rather than waiting for external validation, and accepting that some things may never fully make sense. You come to understand that peace isn't about having every answer, it's about finding a way to live meaningfully without them. When we seek closure, we're often seeking control over situations or relationships that felt chaotic or painful. We want to know why things happened as they did, to believe there was a reason or purpose behind our hurt. However, waiting for closure keeps us tied to the past, hoping that someone else's actions or words will give us the clarity or comfort we need. Moving forward without closure, on the other hand, is an act of reclaiming control over your own story. Instead of waiting for someone else to give you closure, you decide to create it for yourself. You choose to take charge of your healing, framing your experiences in a way that allows you to grow and learn, even if the reasons for those experiences remain unclear. A key part of moving forward without closure is allowing yourself to feel and process the full spectrum of your emotions without judgment. When we don't have closure, emotions like anger, sadness, confusion, and even guilt may linger. In the absence of answers, it's easy to turn these feelings inward, blaming ourselves or getting caught in cycles of self-doubt. But acknowledging and accepting these emotions can help you release the grip they have over you. Give yourself permission to feel without needing every feeling to be justified by external circumstances. Letting go doesn't mean denying your emotions, it means accepting them as a natural part of your experience, processing them, and allowing yourself to heal. Self-compassion plays a significant role in moving forward without closure. Often the lack of closure can lead us to question our self-worth, especially when we feel that someone else's actions or decisions left us feeling discarded or ignored. Practicing self-compassion means offering yourself understanding, kindness, and patience as you navigate these feelings. Remind yourself that you deserve peace and healing, regardless of whether the other person acknowledges your pain or provides explanations. By nurturing compassion for yourself, you build resilience and remind yourself that you are worthy of love and respect, independent of anyone else's behavior or validation. Forgiveness can be a transformative part of moving forward without closure, although it's often misunderstood. Forgiving someone doesn't mean excusing their actions or denying the pain they caused. Rather, forgiveness is about releasing the hold that resentment and bitterness have over your life. It's about recognizing that clinging to anger only keeps you tied to the past, preventing you from moving forward. Forgiveness in this context is a gift to yourself, an act of freedom that allows you to move forward without needing to condone or excuse what happened. It's a choice to release the emotional weight that the lack of closure may have created, making room for new experiences and a sense of peace. In moving forward without closure, it can also be helpful to redefine your narrative around the situation. Instead of viewing it as something that ended incompletely or without fairness, consider how you can frame it as an experience that taught you valuable lessons or helped you grow. Ask yourself what insights you've gained from the experience, how it may have strengthened you, or how it led you to set healthier boundaries. Reframing the narrative gives you a sense of ownership over your journey and allows you to draw meaning from the experience, even if it didn't end the way you hoped. One of the most freeing aspects of moving forward without closure is the understanding that closure is not a requirement for healing. Society often emphasizes closure as a necessary step, but the truth is that healing is a deeply personal process that doesn't always follow a prescribed path. There is no rule that says you need an apology or an explanation to find peace. When you accept that closure may never come, you give yourself permission to let go, to stop searching for answers, and to focus on the life you want to create moving forward. This shift in perspective can be incredibly empowering as it allows you to prioritize your own healing and well-being over the actions of others. Moving forward without closure also reinforces a sense of self-reliance. By choosing to let go without the answers or validation you may have once thought essential, you strengthen your ability to navigate life's uncertainties. This resilience becomes a tool that serves you in other areas of life as you learn to face situations that may feel unresolved with grace and confidence. You develop the ability to cope with ambiguity and make peace with the unknown, which is an essential skill in a world where not everything has a clear or satisfying conclusion. In essence, moving forward without closure is an act of self-liberation. It's a commitment to yourself, a declaration that your peace and happiness are not contingent upon the actions or explanations of others. By letting go of the need for closure, you're choosing to invest in your own future, freeing yourself from the weight of unfinished stories. It's a powerful decision to trust yourself to heal, grow, and create new beginnings, no matter what lies unresolved in your past. Embracing the strength to walk away when you're not appreciated, setting boundaries, and moving forward without closure are all vital acts of self-respect and self-care. By prioritizing your worth and well-being, you empower yourself to create healthier relationships and find peace within. Ultimately, choosing to honor your value allows you to cultivate a life filled with authenticity, fulfillment, and resilience, enabling you to thrive even in the face of challenges.